Today on Capechi's Corner, we're going to factor trinomials. In our previous lesson in factoring trinomials, we had just x squared with a coefficient being 1. Now in this lesson, we're going to have coefficients of different values. So in the first one, we have 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. Now the factoring rules stay the same. The first thing I'm going to look for is the greatest common factor, which in this case there isn't any. And then I'm going to have two binomials, so I'm going to set them up. The second sign is a plus, so it tells me that the signs are going to be the same in the binomial. And this first sign tells me which sign they're going to be. They're going to be both plus. Now my first term I have to look at factors of 2, which in this case I only have 2 and 1 as an option. And my last is going to be a 3 and 1 because they're factors of 3 that will work. So first I know I'm going to have 2x and 1x. I'm going to put 2x here and x here. Now I have to figure out where I'm going to place the 3 and the 1. So in the end, when I add them, I get 7. So I'm going to put the 3 here and the 1 here. And I like to check this by using my loops. So I have my inside and my outside. My inside I have 1 times x, which gives me a positive x. And my outside I have a plus 6x. And when I add them together, I get a positive 7x, which is what I want because that's the middle term in my original trinomial. Now I can check to see if I have the right binomial. So my answer is 2x plus 1 times x plus 3. And then I can check my answer using FOIL, and in the end, I should get the original trinomial that I started with. So my first is going to be 2x times x, which is 2x squared. My outside gives me 6x, my inside gives me 1x, and my last gives me 3. When I add my like terms, I get 2x squared plus 7x plus 3, which is my original trinomial, so I know that I factored it correctly. In number 2, we're going to do the same thing. First, I'd look to see if I have a greatest common factor, and in this case I do. I have a in every term, so it's going to be my greatest common factor. And then I'm left with 5a squared minus 7a plus 2. So I'm going to rewrite my a, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set up my two binomials. The signs are the same. They're both in negative, so I'm going to put them in there. Now I have factors of 5. My only option here are 5 and 1, so I'm going to put 5a here and a here. And my factors of 2 are 2 and 1. Now I'm going to use my loops to help me, but this time I'm going to show you what happens. Let's just say I'm not really sure. I have no idea where to start. So I'm just going to place my 2 here and my 1 here. Now look what happens. My inside loop gives me negative a. My outside loop gives me negative 10a. So when I add them together, I get negative 11a. But that's not what I want. I want negative 7a right there. So I'm going to start over. And I'll put 2 and 1 in a different spot. So I'll put my 2 here, my 1 here. I can check with my negative 2a. And then I have negative 5a. When I add them together, I get negative 7a. So now I know I'm okay. So that's why the loops kind of help you. So my final answer here is a times the quantity of 5a minus 2 times the quantity of a minus 1. Now again, I can check it. I always recommend checking it. It's an easy way to see if you did it correctly. So I have my a's out front. Now I'm going to use FOIL. So I get 5a squared for my first term. And then I have my outside term is minus 5a, my inside term is negative 2a, and my last is plus 2. I'm going to rewrite my a, combine my like terms, and I have 5a squared minus 7a plus 2. Now my last step, I have to distribute that a, so I'm left with 5a cubed. And I have minus 7a squared plus 2a, which is my original trinomial, so I know I factored it correctly. Now looking at my next problem, I'm going to do the same thing, and I realize with my greatest common factor that I can take out 3j. So I'll take that out, and I'm left with 3j squared plus 7j minus 6. Now I'm going to rewrite my greatest common factor, which is 3j, set up my binomials, but this time I realize that's different than the other two, that my second sign is a negative, which means my signs are going to be different. Now in this case, because I don't really know where my positive and where my negative signs are going to go, I'm going to hold off on that. My 3, I'm still going to put 3j and j. And now my options for 6 are either 6 and 1 or 3 and 2. So I have to figure out what combination can I work with, either 6 and 1 or 3 and 2, with that will go with 3 and 1, that in the end, when I subtract them, I get 7j. So, in looking at this, if I put my 3 here, I realize that's going to give me 9j. And if I put my 2 here, that gives me 2j. Now, I have to play around with the signs because I do realize that 9j minus 2j does give me 7j. I want that 7j to be positive, so I really need this 9j, which is my higher combination, to be positive, and I need a negative 2j there. So in order to get the 9j, that plus is going to have to go right here, and my minus is going to have to go here. Now I'm going to rewrite this, and again, I'm going to check using FOIL. This helps me with not only did I put the numbers in the right spot, but are my signs correct? So let's check it and see what happens. So again, I'm going to rewrite my 3j, and then my first is going to be 3j squared. My outside is plus 9j. My inside is minus 2j. And my last is minus 6. Combine my like terms, and I have 3j squared plus 7j minus 6, and distribute that 3j, that's the last thing I need to do, and I'm left with 9j cubed plus 21j squared minus 18j, which is my original trinomial. So I know right here where I factored, I did it correctly. And looking at number 4, I don't have a greatest common factor, so I'm going to set up my 2 binomials. I know my signs are going to be the same because that's a plus. They're both going to be a minus. Now when I look at this, I know I have 4 can be 4 and 1 or 2 and 2. 7 can only be 7 and 1. So I'm going to actually write that in because I know that's the only thing I know for sure. But then I realize I'm trying to add it together to get to a negative 1. That's going to be impossible because I already have a 7 and a 1. So that's not really going to work. So I realize that I can't factor this trinomial. So this is already simplified. And looking at our last problem for today, it says a rectangle has dimensions that are the binomial factors of 3x squared plus 22x plus 24. Which of the following expression describes the perimeter of the rectangle? So we have a lot of things going on. We're talking about has dimensions of the factors of this. So we're going to have to factor 3x squared plus 22x plus 24. In the end, they're asking us what the perimeter is. So let's start with 3x squared plus 22x plus 24, and they already tell us that we need to factor that. So let's set that up. I know the only way you can get to 3 is 3 and 1, so I have 3x and x. My signs are the same. They're both a plus. So I put a plus here and a plus here. Now I have lots of factors with 24. I have 24 and 1. I have 12 and 2. I have 8 and 3. I have 6 and 4. So I have to look for some sort of combination where in the end I'm going to get to 22. So again, this is where my loops are going to be helpful. So I can try a couple different combinations, see which one works. Sometimes visually you get lucky to begin with. So I noticed that 3x, if I put my 6 here, that gives me 18x, positive 18x. And in here I get 4, which gives me a positive 4x, which in the end, when I add together, it looks like I have the right combination. So now I'm going to have to deal with the perimeter, so I need to identify the sides. So I have 3x plus 4 and x plus 6. So let's put 3x plus 4 as my length, and I'll put that on both sides. Gives me a better visual. And then I have x plus 6 as my width. Now when I add them together, I have 3x plus x plus x gives me 8x. And then I have 6 plus 4 plus 6 plus 4 gives me 20. So that looks like that's my perimeter, which is letter C.